Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. This is a B2 level ESL lesson. Today we're going to be doing a grammar lesson learning about modals of obligation and permission. So what are the rules at home? And these are some questions that you can answer in the comments if you would like. Do you have to be at home at a certain time? Can you walk inside the house with your shoes on? Are you allowed to watch TV while eating? And are you supposed to keep your room tidy? And these could be rules for yourself, or if you're a parent, or these rules that you have for your children. So it's important to understand the difference between obligation and permission. So here on the permission side, the little boy says, "Can I go out?" And his mother says, "No, you're not allowed. It's too late." So if you have permission, you are allowed to do something. If you ask for permission, you usually ask a parent, a teacher, or someone in a position of authority. Obligation is a situation where we do not have a choice. There are rules and we have to follow them. Police officers, referees, and air stewards are some of the people who make us obey rules. So now read the text and you can put in the comments whether you agree with this opinion. I think that children whose parents have high expectations and provide strong discipline are more likely to succeed when they become adults. So just say whether you agree or disagree with that statement and why, and you can put that in the comments to generate some conversation. Alright, so now we're going to read about Alex. Alex talks about growing up with strict parents. You can pause the video and read this on your own, or you can follow along as I read. My parents were pretty strict when I was growing up, says 25-year-old Alex. We had to do our homework as soon as we got home, and we were only allowed to watch TV on weekends. He goes on to talk about the chores that he and his brother were made to do every day. We were expected to help around the house. A lot of my friends' parents didn't make them do anything, so we thought our parents were pretty tough on us at the time. So what did Alex have to do around the house? He had to do chores. He doesn't say specifically what chores, and just to help around the house. Is Alex talking about permission or obligation? Well, these sound like obligations, things that he had to do. He didn't really have a choice. But these are some more questions that you can answer in the comments. Were your parents tough on you? Were you expected to do certain tasks or jobs? And what were you only allowed to do on the weekends? So let's take a look at obligation. So we have no obligation, you don't have to do it or you don't need to do it. That's making the rule. Describing in the rule in the present, you don't have to do it, you don't need to do it. And describing the rule in the past, you didn't have to do it, you didn't need to do it. Now a positive obligation, you have to do it, you must do it, you have to do it or you need to do it. And in the past, you had to do it or you needed to do it. And then a negative obligation, you can't do it, you aren't allowed to do it, and in the past, you couldn't do it or you weren't allowed to do it. Now we'll look at permission. So making the rule, you can do it, you are allowed to do it. Describing the rule in the past, you could do it or you were allowed to do it. And no permission, you can't do it or you cannot do it. You can't do it, you aren't allowed to do it. And describing the rule in the past, you couldn't do it, you weren't allowed to do it. Alright, so talk about pool rules. What are you allowed to do or not allowed to do? So you're not allowed to bring pets, you're not allowed to dive, you're not allowed to swim alone, you're not allowed to litter, and you're not allowed to run. What do you have to do? You have to, you're only allowed to use the pool between 8:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. have to use the restrooms, you have to use slippers, and you have to use a cap and goggles. Alright, again, we're going to read some text about obligation and permission. You can pause the video and try this on your own. You're going to choose the correct form of the verb throughout this text. So you can pause the video, try this on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So my parents weren't strict. In fact, I was allowed to do almost anything. I could stay up late, even on weeknights. I didn't have to do any jobs around the house, and could hang out at the mall with my friends. However, there were a few things that I wasn't allowed to do. For example, there were a few things that I had to do. It's a little messy. We'll go back and try this again. Okay, so I was allowed to do almost anything. I could stay up late. I didn't have to do any jobs around the house, and I could hang out with my friends. However, there were a few things that I had to do. For example, I had to feed the cat, and I also needed to wash my parents' car once a month. Still, on the whole, there weren't many rules or expectations. Strangely, I'm tough on my own kids. They aren't allowed to stay out late, and they need to do their homework every night. They also have to do a lot of jobs around the house. So Alex reflects on his childhood. Looking back, Alex now has a better understanding of his parents' attitude. Our days were never very rigid, he said. There weren't many rules, but I think I still learned discipline in my own way. He believes that this freedom helped make the transition from childhood to adulthood smoother than it was for many of his friends. So for Alex, what was the benefit of his relaxed upbringing? That he learned discipline in his own way, and the freedom helped him make the transition from childhood to adulthood smoother. So which word in the text means unchanging or inflexible? That would be rigid. Which word means a group of rules about behavior? Discipline. And which word has a similar meaning to change? Transition. So now we're going to read about Ayako's parents and answer the question. Again, you can pause the video, read on your own, or you can follow along as I read. I was on the state tennis team when I was a teenager, says 28-year-old Ayako. Making time for school and training was challenging. I had a demanding schedule every day. She goes on to talk about how her parents forced her to take care of her younger sister too. I thought it was completely unfair at the time. My parents refused to make any concessions. In their view, tennis training was optional, and my primary responsibility was to my family. So in your culture, is it common to put your family first? You can answer that in the comments. So which two adjectives have a similar meaning? So challenging and demanding. Which sentence shows that Ayako's parents would not change their ideas at all? My parents refused to make any concessions. And which word means first or most important? That would be primary. So when she reflects on her childhood, Yako has a better understanding of her parents' views. At the time, I was angry with my parents. They never let me do anything fun, she says. But I think I learned a lot about self discipline, and I'm an expert on time management. So, what does Ayako mean when she says at the time? It's just another way of saying then or in the past, which expression shows that Ayako's parents didn't allow her to do enjoyable activities. Well, when she says they never let me do anything fun. And according to Ayako, what were the benefits of her strict upbringing? She learned a lot about self-discipline, and now she's an expert on time management. So Ayako and Alex and Ayako used constructions with let and make. So a lot of my friends didn't make them do anything. You often use the expression make someone do something. It's the structure is make plus the object plus the infinitive without the word to. My mother made me clean my room. They never let me do anything fun. The expression let someone do something has the same structure as the expression with make. The security guard wouldn't let me enter the building. Alright, now complete the sentences with a form of let or make. And here's an example. When I was a child, my mother wouldn't let me stay out late. You can pause the video, try these on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. I didn't do my homework all week. My dad was angry and he made me do it on Sunday morning. When I was young, my parents made me clean my room at least once a week. My brother never let me play with his video games. He was selfish. My dad used to make me go to soccer practice even though I didn't like sports. My parents wouldn't make my older sister do anything, but I am 10 years younger and they made me do everything. I am always doing chores. John failed his end of semester exam, so the school made him do it again. You shouldn't let young children look at screens for more than 30 minutes a day. Do you think your mom will let you come to the party this weekend? So we regularly use the verbs allow and force in the passive voice. We use be allowed to plus the infinitive without to. I wasn't allowed to get a job until I was 16 years old. Everyone is allowed to use the public swimming pool for free. We also use be forced to plus the infinitive. As a child, I was forced to play the piano every night for 2 hours. At boarding school, we were forced to get up at 6 a.m. to go running. This is similar to we were made to get up. Alright, so now answer these questions about yourself, and you can put your answers in the comments. When you were young, did your parents make you do jobs around the house? Did your parents force you to do activities that you didn't want to do? Were your parents always strict? Did they let you have fun now and then? Were you allowed to do things that your friends weren't allowed to do? Alright, so we're going to listen to Saga and then answer the questions.
I started playing the violin at a very young age. I think I was only 5. My parents weren't professional musicians, but my mother played the piano very well. They both had a great love of classical music, and we would often go to classical music concerts as a family. From the moment I picked up a violin, I knew that I wanted to become a violinist. My mother quickly recognized my talent, and I used to follow a rigid and demanding practice timetable. I would spend at least 2 hours a day, 7 days a week practicing the violin. Looking back on it, it was a pretty grueling schedule for such a young child. It was challenging, but I don't think my parents really forced me to do it.
All right, how old was Saga when she started to play the violin? She thinks she was only 5 years old when she started playing. What instrument could her mother play? The piano. What would they often do as a family? Go to classical music concerts. What does Saga describe as rigid and demanding? Her practice timetable. What does she describe as grueling? Her schedule as a child. And did Saga's parents make her play the violin? No. All right, listen to the second half of the recording, and then you're going to choose the description that best describes this part of the recording.
Occasionally, I used to have playdates with my best friend Shannon. That was when I realized how strict my parents were. After Shannon had done her homework, she was allowed to do whatever she liked. At her house, we were allowed to play games, and her parents let us stay up late. When she came to my house, my parents were pretty tough on me. They didn't make any concessions. It didn't matter that I had a friend staying. My parents made me stick to my practice schedule. They didn't let me skip a single session. It's probably no surprise that Shannon didn't used to come and stay very often. My parents taught me the importance of self-discipline. It has taken a lot of hard work and dedication to become a professional violinist, and I'm not sure I could have done it without them. However, if I have children of my own, their childhoods are going to be a lot more fun.
Right, so the best answer is C. That Saga didn't really enjoy the time she spent with her friends because Saga's parents were strict with everyone. Saga's friends rarely came to the house, and Saga won't be strict with her own children. Right, we're going to listen again and complete the text.
Occasionally, I used to have playdates with my best friend Shannon. That was when I realized how strict my parents were. After Shannon had done her homework, she was allowed to do whatever she liked. At her house, we were allowed to play games, and her parents let us stay up late. When she came to my house, my parents were pretty tough on me. They didn't make any concessions. It didn't matter that I had a friend staying. My parents made me stick to my practice schedule. They didn't let me skip a single session. It's probably no surprise that Shannon didn't used to come and stay very often. My parents taught me the importance of self-discipline. It has taken a lot of hard work and dedication to become a professional violinist, and I'm not sure I could have done it without them. However, if I have children of my own, their childhoods are going to be a lot more fun.
So when Miles was young, his mother was strict. So read Miles's statements about his childhood, and do Miles's statements agree with what his mother said? You have to clean your room once a week. So my parents made me clean my room every week. You have to practice the clarinet every night. I had to practice the clarinet every night. You cannot be outside after dark. I wasn't allowed to be outside after 7 p.m. You are not allowed to eat sugary foods. My parents wouldn't let me eat candy. You can play video games for 1 hour a day. Okay, so this one doesn't match. I was only allowed to use electronics on the weekends. It doesn't say just the weekends, just 1 hour a day. Now write some rules for Magnus as a child. Then let Magnus explain the rules as an adult. You need to walk the dog each morning. My parents forced me to walk the dog. So that's an example. And think of some other rules that you can write. First as the rule, and then as the adult describing the rule. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Please like, subscribe, share, participate in the comments, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.